Hey, welcome back to When the Cleats Come Off. I'm Ashley Burkhart, and we have, for the first time ever, a second-timer guest on the show. Tisha Mahon is back. Hey, girl.
Hello. It's good to be back. This is awesome.
So because you had so many raving reviews about recruiting and all of the insights and professionalism you know about the recruiting aspect of the game, people have so many more questions. And I know you have so much knowledge about recruiting. And last time I had you on the show, we talked about two different things. We talked about understanding and knowing your why. We talked about the importance of communication, and we talked about email specifically. And we did a giveaway. We did a freebie that you created for athletes to kind of identify their why. And this week, I'm pumped to talk to you about, even more ways to communicate with coaches, maybe one-on-one and things like that. And social media. Everybody wants to know how to use social media to their advantage. Yep. And maybe we'll dive into some more stuff, but so excited to have you back on the show, Tish.
I am pumped. Let's do it.
Me too. So we don't have to go over your entire bio. We did that last time. By the way, if anybody's listening for the first time, I'm really going to recommend you pause, listen to the first episode. It's called Tisha Mahon, Recruiting Talk, Communication, Finding Your Why. Go listen to that first, because this is going to be like a part 2. This is going to be, we're not going to talk about the stuff before. We're going to dive into some new stuff, and I'm super, super excited about it. Woo. All right. So let's just start with this. Why on earth is social media important for an athlete being recruited?
Yeah, so I do want to first off and say that you don't have to have social media to be recruited. So I want everyone to know that. However, I do know how popular it is. And so I think it's good that we do talk about these things so that people can stay safe. They can feel confident whenever they do it. And so just kind of giving a few guidelines with that. So I wanted to start out and say that whether you love social media or hate it, I suggest that you create a timer for yourself while you're on social media. So like for myself, I create a timer, like a 10-15 minute timer to that's how long I'm going to be on social media and being productive with my social media. So like following, liking people that I want to interact with, or just reaching out to new people in general. And so I suggest people do that if they're not the biggest fans of social media. Now, you can do the exact same thing if you're a huge fan of social media. Like, let's say you're one of those people that you could scroll for hours. You set yourself a timer too. So maybe your timer is like 20-25 minutes, just so you can be productive with your time. And you kind of figure out as you go along, like, okay, I could go a little bit longer this time, or, oh, I need to go a little bit shorter this time. So that kind of like helps guide you as you're going through social media.
And you don't get stuck like I do,
Yes.
Looking at TikToks for 45 minutes. And I'm like,
Exactly.
What just happened in my life? Okay.
Exactly.
I feel that. I think that's super important too. Awesome.
Yeah, definitely. And you can use that kind of like in your daily life as well. So I'll do that just with like homework that I have to do. I'm like, okay, 30 minutes, let's do this. And it's been very helpful. So kind of like some do's and don'ts. I think that's important to know, like, as you're going through social media. So like, let's start out with the do's of social media. So kind of going off of that timer, let's say you do have social media and like, maybe you haven't been on it in a while, or like you look back on it and you're like, ooh, maybe I should clean this up. Do that, like clean up your profile. Cause I know for me personally, like I had Twitter back when I was in college, and then I got Twitter more recently. And I was like, that was some weird stuff that I posted, and so I was like, well, let's just clean this up real fast, not that it was anything inappropriate. It was just like, that was weird. Like, why did I put that,
Yeah. So can you talk about cleaning it up if it is something that might be inappropriate and people don't know too? Like, what does clean up mean to you?
So like, I know, like me personally as a person, like I've developed my character, I've developed confidence. And so that's who I am now. And that's what I want to portray. Like I have more confidence. I'm doing a much different thing in life now than I was in college, where like now I'm a teacher. I've started my own business. And so it's like for people to know what you're doing now, as opposed to like 3 or 4 years ago, because like you develop as a person. Like, I don't believe that people change. I believe they come like better or worse versions of themselves. And so it's like, at what version are you at in your life? And that's what you want to portray. So like if you were 13 years old and you're on social media, like I'm sure a bunch of your pictures are like with your friends, like sticking your tongue out. I don't know. And whereas now, like maybe you're 17, 18 years old and now like you go places, like you travel. And so it's like putting those things on there. So in that way, kind of like cleaning up. Does that kind of make it a little bit more clear?
Totally.
Awesome. So you want to also too, like follow, engage with teams that you're interested in, or follow, engage with profiles that you feel like kind of promote, like make you like promote you as a person, I guess you could say. So recently I started following this one Instagram account, and it was all about like women in sport and just like being positive. And so I was like, oh, I really like this. So I liked them. And you can do the same thing with like teams. Like let's say you're like a big Odyssey fan now. So now you're following James Madison, you're following Odyssey on Twitter, Instagram. I don't know if she necessarily has Facebook, but I know JMU does. And so just staying up to date with that. You always want to make sure you also too like show your personality. So like I have a dog. I love my dog. And so I've posted pictures of my dog before. I have a few pictures of me and my husband. And so like for someone that's playing right now, like maybe you have some pictures of your teammates in uniform and now you have them out of uniform. Like your friends like on your team can also be your friends outside of that. And so that's what you want to see, like those relationships that you build.
Yeah, I think coaches think that's really important to like show you outside of softball. I want to get to know you without, because like that's the thing. Coaches are trying to figure out how to have conversations with you. And if they can be like, oh, like you live in Michigan and you went to the beach, like that sounds awesome. And you can talk about things other than softball. That's so great. So important.
Like I know for a fact, I could talk about softball for a very long time. Now, some of my friends are like, Tisha, I need you to stop real fast and let's talk about other things, right? And so it's like trying to find that balance as well with it. But yeah, definitely like coaches want to know who you are as a person. And I don't think that is said. I think it is said enough, but I think it isn't at the same time. Like people think that you have to do like these magical, wonderful things on the softball field. And like, that's great. But however, like you are more than just your sport. Like you are you 95% of the time, and you're a softball player, 5% of the time, even though it sometimes feels like that a little bit more so than normal, but you're more than just your sport. I think that really comes into play after you're done playing your sport. Cause I know that's something that I went through after I got done playing. Like, I can't lie, I went through a little bit of like a stint of like depression of trying to like figure it out, but I didn't realize that's what it was. And then I was like, oh, I identify myself more so with my sport than I do myself. And so it's kind of like working through that. And so I want people to realize that, now like you are more than your sport. And so I think like showing your personality, like showing that athletic content, showing your mental development, your personal content, like through social media, it's kind of like an outlet for people.
Totally. Awesome. So what are things that maybe we should avoid or not do on social media then?
So anything inappropriate. So that could be like being negative to someone, that could be bullying someone. So like I've seen, if you go onto the internet and you type in student athlete loses scholarship through social media, it is just like page after page.
Everywhere.
After page.
Yeah.
Yes. And it happens all the time. Now, some people do get lucky. I have seen a story of a particular like football player. He lost the scholarship, but then he started advocating for, hey, social media can take things away from you. And then he was given a different offer. So like there is redemption in certain situations. So let's say you have done something, doesn't necessarily mean that it like ruins you or that moment defines you. It's, what do you do moving forward? And so just like being really conscious before you press that, press that send button, press that comment button, because you might not necessarily see the consequences like directly in front of you, but there's so much that goes on behind that. I think that kind of refers to like the butterfly effect. If anybody out there knows what that means, it's where you kind of like have something small and then like it waves out. And it has way more effect than just that small little moment.
Yeah, I think so. Kevin DeShazo, he is just basically a marketing guru, but also He's just so smart when it comes to this type of stuff. And he taught actually our entire class of athletes. We all came in one day and he was talking to us about this. And he said, every tweet is representing you. You are your own brand. And whatever you say, positive or negative, is going to reflect you. And the reason why it's important to be conscious of that is because if you do want to play D1 or you do want to play post college, it's really important that you take care of your own brand, because this coach is going to sign up for you to be a part of theirs. And if you're not representing your own brand properly, you're going to misrepresent them and you're likely to get overlooked, which is, I know it sounds harsh, but it's true. So like you said, take the extra second to be like, should I be posting this? Am I posting this out of anger? Am I posting this in high emotions right now? Do not click tweet in a high emotion. I've done it. It doesn't work in my favor. Once I stop to reflect about it, normally I stop myself from doing it and I can breathe easier. So I think that's something really important that Kevin taught us. You're your own brand and represent it well. Even think about the people that you're following. He told us this. He's just like, if there are like cuss words in some of the acts of people that you're following and you're retweeting that, that's also your brand. You have taken somebody else's brand to represent yours and they have cuss words in it. And that's not something you want to represent yourself if you want to be a respected athlete. So that's just a couple of things that I learned. And man, I want to repeat this every day of my life if I have to, because it's that important. But
yeah, exactly. And I'm sure people have seen stories out there, especially like bigger name athletes or like Hollywood stars, where 15 years ago they said something and it gets brought up because someone is like digging or someone is like jealous or angry or upset with them, and then they pull something out, and then that kind of has a reflection on them, even 10, 15 years later. And even now, like kids that are like early teens, like they're on social media a lot sooner than necessarily like you and I were. I think you're a little bit younger than I am, but like I really didn't get on social media, I feel like, until like the end of being in high school. And even then I wasn't supposed to be on social media.
Don't tell mom.
So, yeah, right. It eventually came out, but that's all right. But yeah, I really didn't, come back to social media other than maybe like 3 or 4 years ago. And so that's an imprint that lasts. And so I just really want people to like be aware of that.
Absolutely. So what are some things that you'd encourage? If you're an athlete and you want to post and you want to represent your brand well, what are some things that kind of stick out to coaches that athletes can be aware of?
Yeah. So a popular social media tool right now, especially with coaches and especially like while COVID was going on, is Twitter. And Twitter and YouTube were like super popular. And so like with Twitter, it's occasionally like putting a clip of yourself up there, like getting a hit or having a really good like fielding moment, or even like a moment where like you missed the ball, but then you make up for it. I also think that's super important to put out there because people want to see what happened whenever you do fail. Like how do you handle that failure? And so it's like, put that, 3, 4, 5 second clip up there and tag a few coaches. I think 5 or less is good. I think 5 is okay. When you start to get like more than that, like 10, 15, 20, and 25, 30, that's a lot. And to me, that I would call that spamming. That's kind of like on the list of like, don't do. Like put 4 or 5 coaches in there if you have that many that you're interested in, that you want to see that clip. And that can be super helpful. And that's where you have that timer, be like, okay, I'm going to put up 3 clips today. In those 3 clips, I'm going to tag these coaches, these coaches, these coaches, bam, put it out there.
Curious, would you rather them tag all the coaches in one? Because I think from at least the coach's perspective, it may look like, well, I'm not the favorite. And I know that probably sounds like selfish, but ideally, I mean, it's good to have a coach see it, but would you rather them tag all 5 of them, or, send it to the coach individually, you think?
Well, I mean, ideally, I would love for everything to like go individually to a coach because that is more personable.
Yeah.
And I think you kind of find a balance as you go along as well. So like this kind of goes into like communicating like more so like one-on-one. And I know we're going to talk about that in a moment, but like building that relationship. And so then it turns into like an email, or if you're a little bit older, you're junior or senior, that turns into like a text or like a phone conversation. And so like that builds that relationship even more. And so I think that can be helpful as well.
That's really good insight. Thanks for elaborating. That's just something that was on my mind. But
yeah.
Talk about the importance of being selfless on social media.
So being selfless on social media. So like, I think putting things out there where you're supporting other people, like to me is a really big deal. So like, I follow a particular, it's ESPN Women on Instagram, and I'll scroll through there and I'm like, and I literally everything I heart, because it's like, you go girl, like just like the awesomeness that happens, and you're like, oh, that is so freaking cool. And like, just being like, that's amazing. Like you're doing such a great job. Like sending like personal DMs to people, I feel like kind of like makes people's day as well. And so it's just like encouraging other people, I think, is where like being selfless like really comes into play, because that kind of like spills over into like your own personal life. Like I surround myself with people that to me like help elevate me. I wouldn't necessarily say that like this person is better than me, because then they would be like, Tisha, no. But like help elevate you. And like when you elevate other people, like I feel like it brings you up as well. I definitely can remember whenever I was playing, like I would get into that selfish mode, and it blinded me to so many things that looking back, it's like, oh, like come on. Like if I had the mentality and knew the things that I knew now back then, I would have been unstoppable. And selfishness was like a big thing for me. So being selfless, I love that you brought that up, because that is so important.
Yeah, I mean, just think about Montana Fouts. She just had like that perfect game in the Women's College World Series against UCLA. And the first thing she mentioned was how incredible her teammates were behind her. And that was not fake. It was not like, oh, I need to put the team before me. No, it was genuine. And I think it's important to be able to express, again, your brand as a selfless and humble one, because if you do that, again, you're then going to be selfless and humble in the uniform that you want to be in eventually. So I think, and this takes me back to my dad. I had a Twitter in high school, and so many people were, saying, I did this, I hit this home run, blah, blah, blah. And like all of this, like, these are all the highlights that these athletes did. And my dad goes, you will never talk about yourself on social media. And I said, wait, why? Everybody else is doing it. And he goes, Ashley, let everybody else around you talk about you. I will talk about you. Your family will talk about you. People will find you. You just do your thing. You keep grinding. You keep doing the practicing. You keep doing, setting up your mind right for your next game. You focus on the performance and how you're going to be able to perform at the top level. Let other people talk. Because then all of a sudden there's like newspaper articles and news centers interviewing me later. And that was one piece of advice that my dad told me that it's going to stick with me forever. Because sometimes I get in that selfish mindset too, of just like, I need everybody to know about this big thing. And in reality, it's, you just keep doing the work and other people will see you.
Yes.
Yeah. But then, so I really like when you talked about making adjustments and also like responding to failure. I think that's one of like the coolest things you can do is like, before you show the highlight, show the, hey, this was the strikeout right beforehand, and here's the adjustment I made, and here's the result. I don't think that's bragging. I think that's simply like, dude, that was so hard, and this is the adjustment that I made. Just keeping it real and keeping it honest. Not like, hey, go hype me up, I got a home run. There's like a difference.
Yeah, absolutely. And you don't have to have that home run too. So I'm a little biased because I was a slapper for years. And so it's like that game where maybe you don't necessarily go for 4, but like you get on base through like a drop third strike or ball 4 or hit by pitch, or you move a runner. Like there's a sacrifice in there too. So it's like putting things like that as well. Like I sacrificed this and we were able to win the game because of that. And you're right. Like I feel like people struggle to find the balance between like confident and cocky. Like there's like a fine line that you kind of dance with sometimes, I feel like. And so I've had to learn myself, like I've always been humble, but like also too being like, I did that. Like I did that, and being proud of that.
Yeah, that's always been hard for me, is being able to like say that out loud. I did that, and be proud of yourself for doing that. So give me an example. I'm putting you on the spot here of a confident tweet and then a cocky tweet.
So I would say that like a cocky tweet would be like, we won that game because of me. Like we only won because of me, or because of this thing I did was the only reason we won that game. When in all actuality, it's not. Like there had to be so many other things that happened to like get you to that certain point. And at the end of the day, it is, you have between, 10 to 15 people on your team. And I think it's a good reminder that you are not the, like it doesn't take one person to like be successful in softball. Like you have to have majority contributing in some way, shape, or form. It's not like, like golf or swim where like it's solely on that one person. There's so many more people involved. And I think a confident tweet would be kind of going back to that selflessness of like, hey, like my girl did it today, like because of like this amazing moment that she turned around, like she helped elevate us. And so I think that would kind of define the difference between like cocky and confident.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. And even like if you are posting something about yourself, making it about the team. Like, hey, got this runner over and she ended up scoring off of so and so's great hit. Like tell a story. I know we talked about that last time in our emails, but like tell a story. That's the most attractive thing. And if you don't know how to tell a story, literally just think about what just happened and break it down. Like I think that's a really easy way to do that. Now, last thing I want to talk about with social media is the comparison game, because you talked about setting a timer. And I think the longer that I'm even on social media, the more I start comparing my work to other people's. And that does not do anything for my mental health. So when it comes to comparison, everybody feels it, especially us females. We do it a lot. I think it's part of our nature, I think. But how would you give advice to somebody who finds themselves comparing their journey to someone else's on social media?
Yeah, I think it's being aware of where you are at in your journey, and like looking at it from like a teaching perspective, as well as everyone learns differently and everyone learns at a different pace. So like you could have student 1 and 2, and they're on the same like reading level, but student 1 got there faster than student 2, but eventually that student 2 eventually catches up. And so it's, I feel you on this one. And so it's realizing like, and seeing what you've done to get to that point is really important too, because I have to step back and do the same thing. Because, I've even found myself like comparing myself to you or like some of my other friends. And it's like, you know what, like, this is where they were, in their journey. And like, this is where I'm at, and that's okay. And so like realizing how far you've come, I know personally has helped me. And I think that's a big contributor as well. And so it's like also realizing too, like your vision or your goal for yourself. And as long as you're doing at least one thing a day to work towards that vision, work towards that goal, like that is progress. I used this example the other day when I was talking to a student athlete, and I said, you know what? Some days I want to wake up and I just want to veg out on that couch over there. And I said, you know what? I will at least go and make my bed so that way at the end of the day, I've at least accomplished one thing productive. I made my bed and it looks great in there, And so you're going to have those days where all you want to do is make your bed. And then you're going to have those days where you make your bed, you make yourself breakfast, you go and you get a workout in, you come back and you do 45 minutes of work. You go and hang out with a friend, you come back and do an hour of work. And then next thing you know, like your day's been super productive. And so like, that's how it is. It's like this journey that you go all along. And that's what I like to refer the recruiting process as it's a journey. Some days you're going to get this far, and then other days you're going to get, super far. And so it's, accepting where you're at and like seeing how far you've come.
That was so well said. One of the best advice I ever heard was don't compare somebody else's middle to your beginning. And I think that just goes perfectly with what you mentioned. And especially on those days that are really hard, and literally I'm like you, I just want to go veg out on the couch. I just want to watch my favorite Netflix series all day, because sometimes that's all we want and that's what we need. I tend to actually on those days compare myself the most. So I try to like throw my phone somewhere else while I'm doing this so that I don't compare myself. Because when I'm being lazy is when I'm comparing myself the most to others. So I think that's a little piece of advice. If you do want to be lazy one day, which I think we all need lazy days, I try to make it at least one day a week. I'm just super lazy just because I need it. But hide your phone, hide your laptop, just distance yourself from everything and just take care of you. Oh, that's so good.
Absolutely.
I love it. I love it. Can we talk about camps?
Yes.
It's camp season. Everybody's going to camps right now in the summer, and some people have already been to big camps. Some are going to more. I think it's a prime time to talk about camps and how they can benefit athletes that are looking to get recruited. So first of all, why should athletes go to college camps, or even like camps with a bunch of different colleges at them?
Yeah. So actually this week I'm going to UNC camp, and Coach P does a fantastic job of like bringing coaches from like all over the state, and she will involve her players as well. And the more exposure you get, I like to say like more bang for your buck. The more exposure you can get in one place, the better, because coaches talk. Like they talk. And like that downtime that you don't see, there's a lot of talking that goes on. And I think it surprises players and parents sometimes when I'm having a conversation with them and I'm like, oh yeah, I talked to them just the other day. And they're like, what? Like, yeah, like we talk. Like the world of softball is a lot smaller than what you think. And so it's making connections, it's communicating. So like let's say you are going to the UNC camp this week, I'll see you then. But it's, just having a conversation with Coach P whenever like you're in transitioning, and because she loves to like walk around and talk to people and things like that. So it's just like, hey, Coach P, you're looking good today. I hope to see you later on, just something like show your personality. Like me, I'm a little like, I think I'm quirky sometimes in the sense of like, what up, and I just say whatever's on my mind a lot of times, and people remember that. Like, and so it's also too like taking advantage of the players on the team as well, talking to them, like asking them like, hey, what's your experience like here, or do you know someone that is at this school, like how are they doing there, or tell me about your recruiting journey, or just what'd you have for dinner last night, like can you just talk to me please, just because like people in that setting, I feel like are so timid to say something wrong that they won't say anything at all. And so it's be yourself, like say, hey, like just do whatever you can to try to start a conversation. Even if it's like, I really like your shoes today. Like those look good. Like you never know like where that could go. The hardest part is taking that like first step. And the only way you're going to get better at communication is if you do it. Like there's no, like, you just got to do it. And for me, I really struggled with communication, especially like growing up. Like I didn't like to talk. And some days I still have those days where I'm like, I'm done. I'm not talking to anybody today. But the only way I got better at it was whenever I actually like talk to other people. And so like a big thing with that is ask questions, be authentic or genuine whenever you're having those conversations, and just listen. Like that's all you have to do whenever you do communicate. If you have no idea what to say, do those 3 things.
Yeah. And make it about the other person. Like we said, I love your shoes. Be honest. If you love her shoes, tell her, because I can't tell you how many times I've even been an athlete at these camps and the coaches are like, okay, what players stood out to you? Like what players are we missing? And then they're like, oh, that cute girl that asked me about my shoes. Like she is like super passionate, and they have their eyes on you more when they have these little sparks of knowing you and getting to know you.
Exactly.
Ooh, that's so good. If anybody only takes one thing away from today's episode, that might be the one. learn
I mean,
like you learn by communicating, by doing it. You learn how to do it by doing it. And it's
mhm.
going to feel awkward and quirky, but like, here's the deal. We're all awkward and quirky in our own way. Just be yourself.
Yeah, I always say, you know, everyone's weird. It's just what level of weird do you want to hang out with? I say that all the time.
I think
And I
your
think it's
weirdness and my
great.
weirdness are like the same, and I love it.
Yep, exactly. But I love the point that you brought up about where like you yourself, like you're not necessarily like a college coach, but like people still value your opinion. And I mean, I'll even ask that of like the like the college players that are like traveling with the groups. I'll be like, hey, tell me a little bit more about that kid right there. Like, what'd you think of them? And it really just kind of blossomed from there, because sometimes you're not going to remember someone's name, but like if you remember like the shirt that they're wearing or the type of socks that they have on, or if they had like a big old bow in their hair, like that kind of like helps you remember that person as well.
I was just about to ask you, what are some ways athletes can stand out at these camps? Now, those are some physical ways, like wear the bow, wear the funky socks, or maybe you just, have the coolest team jersey, you wear that day. But what are other ways that athletes can stand out at these camps?
I know it's like simple and I said it earlier, but like going up to someone and like noticing something about them, or do your research beforehand, see what coaches are going to be there, and just put like one thing about that coach or one thing about that team. Because if you go up to a college coach and you're like, hey coach, I saw that you guys won your very last game of the season, like I was watching that game, like that was a really good game, like that really stands out to people whenever you kind of do like your background work on them. And it doesn't have to be 10, 15 things. It could be one thing, because that one thing kind of gets you like that in. Because I'm telling you, whenever I was coaching, if a kid came up to me and was like, hey, Coach Tish, hey, Coach M, I noticed this about you, I would be like, oh, you really did your research. Like, I like that. Like, that really leaves an impression on people whenever like you actually take an interest in them. It's always surprising and nice and flattering all at the same time. Because at the end of the day, I feel like people want to be seen. They might not say it, but like they want to be seen. And so even if like what you say to me, like your voice is shaking, like you were trembling, you at least did it. And that's going to stand out to me as well.
Yeah. I think probably the most important part too is like, you can't just have the personality so they watch you. You gotta be good too. Like you gotta be able to match the work with this communication, because you can communicate all you want, but if you don't have the actual skills to back you up, then
Yes.
you're just talking the game instead of being the game. So
Yeah.
I think it's good to kind of pair those two as well. But those are really good ways to get those coaches' eyes on you so that you can share your talent and feel confident there.
Exactly.
Yeah. So I know some of these camps are so expensive, Tish, like so expensive. It's an arm and a leg. It's a 3-day camp. It's a lot of money because that's just what it is. How can athletes decide where to go? Like they probably have like 20 schools they want to go to, but they can't go to 20 camps. I mean, some people can. I don't know how, but how do they choose which camps to go to?
I think it kind of like comes down to how far you're wanting to go, like distance wise. And I think it's also too, like, I think creating a budget would be a really good idea for people, and being like, okay, we're going to spend X amount this summer. Let's look up. I know you're really interested in these 5. Let's look these 5 up and see which ones work the best for us. Because you're right. Like, things are stupid expensive, like even more expensive than ever whenever we played. And so I think creating a budget, looking at the schools that you are interested in and seeing like where they're going, and then like really creating that list. There was one other thing I was going to say and it left me.
What do you feel about the camps with a bunch of different coaches? Do you think that would be a good idea?
Oh yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Seems
like I know they've started doing, so there is a specific, there's a lady that it's called Backwards K-Jax, and she does she does like showcases / camps where like the college coaches are going to be there like all weekend. And she brings in sometimes almost like 50 coaches in a weekend. And that's down in Florida. And so like finding things like that is like super helpful. And I've actually like created a list of like places that offer like camps like that. And so reach out to me, let me know. List.
That's awesome. So, what was that one you said? It was coaches what?
It's called Backwards K Jax, and Jax is spelled Jax.
Okay, I'm going to have to reach out to you because I want to leave that in the show notes, because if that's something people are interested in, I want them to be able to go there and check it out. But awesome. I'll make sure that's in the show notes so people can see it. But that's awesome. Yeah, so that's cool. So now people know kind of an idea of when they can go to what camps. And camps are normally run at universities in the summer and in the winter. That's like their off time. Just for people who maybe aren't aware of camps, a whole lot of what's going on. But yeah, I think I just met with an athlete that I work with this week, and she went to her very first college camp, and there were a bunch of different colleges there, and she was so nervous.
Yeah.
And I think one of the things that I told her, first of all, is like, yes, all of these coaches are there. You can either use that as fuel or you can use it to scare the crap out of you and do nothing that day. Mm-hmm. So one piece of advice that I gave her was just like, hey, these coaches are watching you to see you. Be yourself. Like, what are your 3 biggest strengths in this game? She was just like, well, I have a powerful swing. I'm like, okay, bring your powerful swing. Focus on your powerful swing that day. Oh, I'm pretty speedy on the bases. All right, well, the opportunity that you have, that's your opportunity to shine. Doesn't mean you have to be perfect on defense if that's not your biggest thing. Just do your best at what you're good at.
Yep.
Don't be afraid to fail either, because it's going to happen. The coaches are actually going to try to watch you fail to see how you react. Exactly. So those are like some of the biggest things that I told athletes to help just develop and like calm down the nerves a little bit, because it is a scary situation. And, you know, when college coaches are out there watching you at your tournaments, it's also scary, but you have to focus in on you and what you're capable of, not this other girl that's jacking a home run every other pitch. Like, you focus on her, you're not focusing on you. Bad things are going to happen. Any other ways that athletes can maybe develop confidence while they're at these camps so that they can stand out but not compare themselves to other people?
Focusing on someone else, like kind of what you just said. And so like whenever you could pick one girl and be like, you know what, she's in my group, I feel like we're pretty like even on like personality, like temperament, things like that. Like anytime you can find common ground with someone, that's very comforting. And so and you will develop friends as like you go throughout the day or the weekend or however long your camp is. And so like be that person's like biggest cheerleader. I think sometimes just focusing on someone else can like make you feel better. Also, humor is a big one. Humor really relaxes people. Like I myself, I like to start off with something funny or a joke just to not only relax other people, but to relax myself. And so I find that comforting as well. So like humor can really help as well.
Yeah. I want to go back to when you talked about finding someone else to kind of put your energy into. That's great advice. But I also think you can use that person as like, she's not going to outwork me and I'm going to outwork her. And then all of a sudden she outworks you and you're like now leveling up your game. You just stay by her side, that level of competition that's really similar to you, and kind of use her as like your level ground. Like, it's important who you choose, because if you love to steal bases and you choose a person that's super slow, that's not going to help you. Like, go find somebody similar to you and go to outwork them, because it's a healthy competition. It's not comparison. It's simply like, oh, you're going after it. Now I'm going to go after it. Let's go. And you both rise together.
Exactly. And people see that too. Like they'll notice like, oh, they look like they're in a little bit of a competition. And so like that, you know, brings the focus on you guys a little bit more. And then you're helping each other out without even realizing it. So at that point, that's awesome. Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, this has been so much fun. I hate that we only have a couple minutes left. I really wanted to dive into communication, but I think we may just have to wait for our next conversation to do that one.
That's all right.
And that's the beauty of this relationship. I'm like, we can just continue this recruiting talk forever and ever. So if you're listening to this right now and you're like, oh my gosh, I need a recruiting question answered, write a review on Apple Podcast. Tell me the one that you want. And then the next time we talk to Tisha, we're going to talk about it. But we are going to dive into communication, how to talk to coaches in person and on the phone for your own benefit here in the future. Before I ask you your 3 rapid fire questions at the end, how can people follow you? I know we talked about it last time, but we've got maybe some newbies on the show that really want to follow your insight and knowledge in recruiting.
Yeah, absolutely. So I have Instagram, I have Facebook, I'm working towards the YouTube page. I'm almost there with it. And then my website, it is finally out. And so that is coming to where you can also look and like find me as well. And then obviously email, if you have questions as well. So I think, we are going to post that after this.
Yeah, I'll put everything that you just mentioned in the show notes so people can keep following you and ask you direct questions that they have. Yeah, man, we could talk for hours, can't we?
We can. our conversation just like keeps going, I feel like.
I know.
It's good though.
No, it is good. It's very good. And those of you who maybe didn't see the free resource on how to find your why or listen to the last episode, go do it. You're going to find out so much more information about recruiting and hopefully get your questions answered from Tisha. All right. I know. 3 rapid fire questions. You ready?
I'm ready. Hit me.
Okay. What's the coolest thing you've seen an athlete do to stand out?
Ooh, the coolest thing, like for me specifically, or
anything you've seen. I don't know if it's for you or for another coach, but you're like, whoa, that girl's gonna get seen.
Yeah. Oh, man. Like in my mind, I see it happening and I can't necessarily like put it into words, but just like someone going all out for something and being like, oh, I missed that, no big deal, but like, let's get this next one. Or like they got up and, got the throw or made something else happen. Like I can't think of like an exact one because I feel like somebody like flooded my mind at one time.
Yeah.
And so you got me on that one.
That's good though. But it reminded me of when I had AJ Andrews on the show. Yeah, Aaliyah Andrews' sister, the ones who just dive all over the place and make these outstanding plays. AJ said that she stood out to LSU's coach. LSU's coach wasn't even there watching her. She was walking by her field and she went all out on this play in the outfield. And that was the first time she was seen. And she did make the catch, but like, even if she didn't make the catch, but like went all out for it, I guarantee she still would have been seen and now been looked at by her alma mater. So going all out is big, like huge.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, now I think of a specific one. So there was this one player that I went to go watch, and I'd been talking back and forth with her, building relationship, wink, wink. And I went to go watch her, and then she had a catcher on her team, and immediately like she caught my eye because it was like the intensity she brought behind the plate. And I ended up talking to her afterwards and was like, hey, where are you going? Just kind of trying to start conversation. She was like, nowhere. I said, really? Nowhere, huh? I was like, what do you want to do? Like, what do you want to major in? And what she wanted to major in kind of aligned with what I was coaching at William Peace at the time. And I was like, yeah, you can do that at our school, and it kind of just planted the seed and she ended up going there. And so that was really cool that, you find, unexpected pleasant surprises when you don't even anticipate it. So it's like whenever you don't have that verbal communication, like your body language and your actions show a lot more.
I love that answer. All right, second one. What's a great headliner for an email to stand out?
Oh, I like that. Your next second baseman.
That's a good one.
Your next outfielder, or I bring confidence, speed, and aggressiveness. Like what is it that you bring to the table? I feel like just having that like in the title would like really catch somebody's eye, as opposed to like, hey, coach X, Y, and Z. Like, yeah, okay, I'm glad that you put my name. Like that's a step in the right direction. Now, what can you do for me?
That's good. I love that. I know people are looking for that quick little excitement when they read an email. So that's a really good one. All right, last rapid fire for you. What's one piece of advice you'd give an overwhelmed athlete going through the recruiting process right now?
Okay, it is overwhelming. Like I totally get that. And that is okay. Have patience with yourself, have grace with yourself, take it a step at a time. Because it kind of goes back to the comparing of like, well, my friend is doing this or my friend is doing that. Well, it doesn't matter what your friends are doing. Like, what is it that you're doing? Because this is your journey. This is like your process. If you just need to send one email out that day and just, you're like, okay, sent. At least you did it, right? And so have patience, have grace with yourself, breathe. It's okay. You have time, be that a freshman, sophomore, junior, even a senior, like you have time. You might just be like off going in a different direction when maybe you need to come back this way. And so finding what is the balance for you.
Leave it to Tish to give 45 answers to the one. I love it.
Yeah. I like options. What can I say? I like metaphors.
Take
I do
your
it with my
favorite
kids all
and
the
run
time.
with it. That's so good.
Especially my lessons kids. I'll throw something out there and they're like, but it makes sense. And they're like, you're right.
That's so great. Well, thanks so much for coming back on, Tish. Next time we chat, we'll talk a little bit more about how to communicate with coaches. But any final words? No, ma'am. Thank you so much. I really do appreciate it. And everybody else that's listening, watching, all the above, asking questions, like, thank you. Like, thank you for showing up for yourself at the end of the day. That's what it's all about. Amen. Love it. Thanks for coming on. No problem. Thank you.